YouTube, how's it going? The GoNows is back with my week 2 score predictions and picks against the spread here every single Wednesday with this video. Did pretty well last week, went 11-5. Got some tough games this week. Excited to give you my predictions, our straight up predictions with the other guys already up for week 2. That goes up every Tuesday. You see the schedule on the bottom left. Loads of NFL content, including our bets/locks of the week, which was a hit last week. It'll be the next video after this one. So like, subscribe, turn notifications on, join us. Be much appreciated. Follow us on Twitter. Twitter subscribers get the bonus content you see underneath me, including college football bets, score predictions, things like that. Sponsors in the bottom right: Liquid IV, GLD Shop, code GOAT on both those sites. Rocking the Bucks chain. Got a Chicago jersey and a Bucks chain. The Bucks and the Bears play this week, but that is from the GLD Shop. They have some sick stuff over there. They're also supplying the giveaway and prizes for our picks league. Any of that I just rattle off, if you're interested, links pinned in the comments. So Thursday night football, the Vikings at the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 7 points. I actually have them covering. It's a pretty big spread. Vikings +7 at Eagles, and we'll recap my against the spread picks at the end of this video. There'll be timestamps in here, but yeah, I have the Eagles covering in it. Maybe it's somewhat tough because Eagles, the secondary is not as good as it was last year. I think a lot of it because coaching, but because of the departures at the safety position, and then plus Bradbury is likely out this week. And the Vikings can throw the ball. Even though they lost last week, they threw the hell out of the ball against a good defense. So that makes you think that they could keep it close, they could air it out, and I suppose that's possible, but the Vikings blocking isn't too great. They're beat up on the offensive line. The Eagles' defensive line is very stout. They'll stop the run. They'll get pressure. Specifically, interior pressure is the key in this game, and it will occur for the Eagles against the Vikings' offensive line. So that'll really slow the Vikings' explosive offense down, and that'll be enough. And in Philly, Thursday night football, the Vikings don't go well at prime time. I think Hurts and company will have success against this Vikings defense. The Vikings defense should be better this year, but it really relies on blitzing, getting after the quarterback. Going to be tough to do against the Eagles' offensive line and Jalen Hurts. So everything points towards the Eagles, on top of them being home prime time. So I like them winning by a pretty good amount here, 27-17, 10-point victory on Thursday night. So if this prediction is accurate, the Vikings will be dropping to 0-2. That would be pretty tough there. So on to the Sunday slate of games. This might be one of the toughest ones on here. The Packers and the Falcons. The Packers are favored by 1.5. I have them winning by 3. I was kind of bouncing around with the score of 19-17, 19-16. This is what I ended up with. I think a lot of really good defense in this game, but specifically a red zone defense. Will result in some field goals, but it should be around that range. It is in Atlanta. The Falcons defense played well last week. The running game was very solid, and that could be the case again this week. Jesse Bates had a monster game, and could he take the ball away from Jordan Love? I'd say if the Falcons go out there and really blitz quite a bit, more than expected, that would be their way to win this game. I think some blitzes will happen, but we'll see. That's something that can throw off Jordan Love. But the Packers in general, just pass protecting wise, I'm not really worried about their offense line against the Falcons pass rush too much, unless there's a blitz factor there. But we talk about the Falcons did very good on the ground. The Packers did as well with Aaron Jones, who we'll keep an eye on his hamstring injury. If he's out, I could be shifting to the Falcons here. So that's something to, another reason to follow us on Twitter. Always giving you those updates, things like that if I change picks. But that's something to monitor there. But I like the Packers. A defensive game, and this one, I like the Packers on defense a little bit more. I'm going to trust their defense a little bit more, and I'm going to trust them their passing game a little bit more. I'm not really trusting Desmond Ridder to be that explosive through the air. I don't think Love will be that explosive either, but a little bit more here. So those will be the slight differences in why I'm leaning with the Green Bay Packers. And also, either the Falcons, they definitely outplayed the Panthers, but the Panthers actually outgained them in that game. The Falcons didn't do a whole lot besides get 2 Jesse Bates interceptions and some nice runs from Algier and Bijan Robinson. If they're relying on that, I don't know if they're going to win a game like this. But I'm not saying that for sure will be the case. But there's just more little things, siding towards the Packers in this one. So I'm going to go with them 19-16. This is a tricky one against the spread because I think it's a 50-50 game, and usually, against the spread, I'd go with the underdog in a 50-50 game. It's only 1.5 points, though. I think if the Packers do win, I'm kind of more towards them being, winning more than that, I should say. So that is a very tough one against the spread. Tough one to pick straight up as well. That should be a good one, though. Lots of fun there. Raiders, Bills. I'm going to go the Bills with the big win. And another team with the big line, 9.5, and I actually have them covering. So this week's a little tricky. It's always tricky taking the teams with the big lines, but and the Raiders have a shot in this game. They looked pretty decent last week, and they can run the ball very well. The Bills could struggle a little bit stopping the run, stopping Josh Jacobs. I think the Raiders have to get going with that early, though. I think that's the issue. I think the Bills could take the run game away from them. The Raiders' defense played pretty well last week against the Broncos. I'm still not buying. I'm not going to buy that it's good. I don't think it's a good defense. I think Max Crosby's incredible. But I think the Bills will air it out against the Raiders. They'll cause all kinds of problems. They'll be able to score at any given time. They can score on a bomb. They can work the field. So I don't think the Bills have any problem scoring. The issue could be they can run into is the Raiders running the football, having success, and just controlling the clock and limiting the Bills' chances on offense, which is possible. It's a possible scenario. So, that it's pretty much either going to be a Raiders close win or a Bills big win is kind of where it's at. But I think the Bills just come out firing through the air, score with ease. They'll be pissed off what happened that last game. So I'm going to take the Bills winning 30-17 in a big one. But if they struggle offensively in this one, Buffalo's got problems. They got problems. So we'll see what happens. Not the best outing offensively last in week one. Next game, Ravens-Bengals. I have a 1-point squeaker on this one. The Bengals are favored by 3.5. That's a bit because the Ravens could win this game. It's a kind of close to a 50-50 game. I picked the Bengals. They're at home. Bounce back game. The Ravens are beat up on top of the injuries starting to pile up. Marlon Humphrey was already out. Mark Andrews definitely could be back, so that could be a boost for the Ravens, but other injuries happening, so that's pretty tough. I think they rely on Lamar Jackson getting loose to run the football. And the Ravens, Lamar kind of want to do a little bit less of that. They want him to throw a little more. And the Bengals got a pretty stout defense. So the Bengals are pretty bad early in seasons. They were in week one. They were the same thing for a couple weeks last year as well. So that could be the reason the Ravens win. And the Ravens are a pretty good team. They got a pretty good defense, stout defense. So that'd be the reason for the Ravens. But I'm going to say the Bengals just squeak by, and the receivers have a good game against no Marlon Humphrey, no Marcus Williams. The secondary is just a little bit different than the Browns' dominant secondary from last week. So I think the Bengals squeak by in this one in a classic divisional rival. We have another rival game in the division as well, the last game that we'll talk about. So this should be a good one, though. But plus 3.5, especially that it's over the 3, it seems like a little bit there. But, of course, the Bengals could win by like 6 or 7. I'm just not really counting on it being that much. Seahawks and Lions. This could be like a trap game. Because everyone kind of confident with the Lions. They beat the Chiefs last week. The Seahawks got their ass beat to the Rams. This could be one of those, watch out for this one in week 2. I can see the Seahawks, sneaking away with this one. I'm not going to predict it, but I can see it. I prefer teams that run zone coverage over man against the Lions. The Seahawks do run more zone typically. And I prefer a team that can pound the football, drain the clock, give them limited chances, and that's what the Seahawks do. They'll use Kenneth Walker a bit, which he was actually successful, efficient on the ground last week. They just got down by so much against the Rams, they couldn't run as much as they wanted to. So if the start is a little smoother with this one and they run the football, control the clock, that's how the Seahawks can win this game, and I can definitely see it. It's just tough to predict that way right now. Because even though there's parts of the matchup that side with the Seahawks, there's also parts of the matchup that side with the Lions. They can do the same thing. They can pound the football. Seahawks defense is definitely on the weaker side still. And the Lions will be able to pass the ball on top of it. But they'll be able to run the football extremely effectively there with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think we'll see a little bit more of Gibbs this week than last week, even though he was a factor last week. So I think both teams try to pound the football, gain on the on the ground, and control the clock. I think both teams could have success doing that. The Lions will have a little bit more. I also trust their defense a little bit more in this one, and they're home, and they're fresh off some momentum, and the Seahawks are fresh off a bad one there. So it's, even though I could see it, it's tough to go against the Lions this one. So I'm going to go 27-23, and that was like the furthest apart I was going to go. It could even be closer. 27-24 was in my mind, 26-24, around that range. And the Seahawks are getting 6 points. I've seen it bounce around between 6 and 5.5. I think they can win the game. So against the spread, I'd be happy taking those 6 points. But it is a little risky. Could the Lions win by 7 points? You lose by 1 right there. on the line. That'd be tough. It's possible. That's kind of betting, obviously, but that's a lot of points for the Seahawks. But I have the Lions winning that one. Chargers, Titans, only -3. Could this be a trap game here as well? Possibly. The Titans are very good running the football. Derrick Henry. The Chargers struggle stopping the run, even though last week it was more stopping the pass was the struggle. So that'd be the way the Titans win, just pounding the football, winning the time of possession. Definitely could see it. They've had some really close games with the Chargers last couple times. It could be something similar, but Tannehill's really declining, really struggling. The offensive line was okay last week, but I would not expect that every week. They could struggle a little bit more in this one. The Chargers really struggled last week because of defense and because the pass defense. They could not stop the Tua, Tyreek Hill, and the Dolphins. Titans really don't have that. They don't have that passing attack. They don't have Tua. They don't have Tyreek Hill. They're not the Dolphins. So that's kind of a win for the Chargers, but the run game could beat up the Chargers in this one. But also something I noticed, the Chargers on offense were more dominant on the run, on the ground, than through the air, and the Titans just are dominant stopping the run. So the Chargers won't be that effective, you may say, offensively as last week because of that, but the Chargers can win with the pass as well, and that's almost going to help in their favor. I think the Titans are watching this tape, and what they did last week was a lot of new things the Chargers don't do on the ground, but the worry should be Herbert and those receivers through the air, and I think they get just enough through the air and maybe make that extra play on defense. So I'll take the Chargers by 7 here. I think the matchup really favors them, except for the one part of the Titans could run wild, but that's kind of the one thing the Titans got going from this game. Like the one thing, they can run the ball super effectively, but I like the Chargers by 7 in this one. Next, we got the Bears and the Bucks. I was back and forth in terms of, against the spread, looking at the line on this one. I even thought about a 1-point squeaker. I got the matchup just sides with the Bucks all day in this one. The Bucks beat the Vikings last week, so am I buying in the Bucks being for real? Not quite yet. There was some luck on their side in that game. But overall, they're impressive to come away with a win against a former 13-win team. But the matchup, so with me picking the Bucks like this, it's not me all in on the Bucks all of a sudden. It's more me thinking the Bucks could be sneaky, but the matchup really favors them. The Bears, for them to have success on offense, it's run the football. The Bucks are pretty damn good stopping the run. We saw it last week. The Bears' run game would be a little tougher than the Vikings, though, but they'll have a good game plan for Fields. Maybe they'll have Winfield spy him a little bit, or whoever it may be. They'll blitz. The Bears' offensive line struggled. The Field struggled under pressure last week. Doesn't really get the ball out in time, even if he has open receivers. The Bucks got playmakers. The Bucks get a good pass rush. They blitz. They stop the run. All of that just factors into bad matchup for the Bears offense. And then to beat the Bucks, the Vikings did throw all over the Bucks, but you have to air the ball downfield. You have to have a quarterback that gets the ball on time. They have Justin Jefferson out there as well. So that's kind of what the Bears don't do, is get the ball downfield and make those explosive plays that way. So the Bears, I should say. So that's kind of how you beat the Bucks. So I think the Bucks got the playmakers, they got the pressure, they stopped the run. So that's the main reason I'm going with them here. And the Bucks offense shouldn't really do a whole lot of damage, but the Bears defense isn't the best in the world. I think you need to blitz against Baker, and the Bears just don't do that. So I think the Bucks can do just enough. Rachaad White didn't have a good game last week, but I'd watch out for him through the air actually this week. I think he'll catch the ball pretty well. The Bears struggled against running backs last year. They struggled against running back last week, and Aaron Jones through the air and on the ground. So maybe we see a little Sean Tucker as well. So just the matchup just keeps telling me, the matchup tells me Bucks by more than this, honestly. 20-16, it tells me the Bucks dominate this game. But I guess, do they have enough explosiveness on offense to dominate somebody? That's kind of the question. So 20-16, plus 2.5 is a little tricky because the Bears could win this game and they could lose it by very, very close. So that is a tricky one to bet. The score I came up with was 20-16 here. Tampa Bay. Chiefs-Jags, there's a gut feeling on this one, going with the Jags. Travis Kelce, now it's sounding like he will play. So that, and I kind of thought if he would play, I'd kind of switch to the Chiefs, but my gut is just still pulling me towards the Jags. So that's what we're going to go with. But it's a toss-up head-to-head. The Chiefs are favored by 3, so Vegas has them somewhat comfortable winning that game. But I do like the Jags against the spread because it's plus 3, and I think they can win the game. They're home. And getting those 3 points is pretty big. They played well against them in the playoff game, so maybe there's some revenge here. But it's kind of my gut. It's more than that, though. The Jags are a pretty good football team. The Chiefs are, possibly getting Kelce back, and they will get Chris Jones back. Chris Jones Does he have to knock some rust off? It's a type of guy that probably does not, but that's a possibility as well. And that's the thing. That's actually the matchup problem here. The Jags got unlucky that Chris Jones signed that contract because the Jags on the interior were not good last week, and now they got Chris Jones coming to town. So that could be the one thing that beats them up there. But maybe Chris Jones won't be full elite, like defensive player of the year candidate Chris Jones in this one yet. Or he could be. I think the Lions were moving the ball all right. I think the Jags with their explosiveness with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Calvin Ridley, I think Christian Kirk has a much better game than he did last week, which he didn't do much of anything last week. I think that is just enough, and the Chiefs receivers are still a problem. If Kelsey's out there, it helps, but it's kind of still of a problem. Can they get enough going? They will have some offense going, but I like the Jags this one. It's kind of a gut feeling. All those playmakers they have, Trevor Lawrence looking good, revenge from the playoff game. This is one I could switch my straight up pick, but I like the Jags +3 no matter what in that game. So kind of a gut feeling one there. Colts-Texans, very low-scoring game. I have the Texans this one. The Colts are favored. It's in Houston, so another underdog here. But I liked what I saw from both these defenses here and there last week, actually. Even though they both lost by double digits, they showed some good things there. The Texans, a new era with that defense under DeMeco Ryans, stopping the run, having a good game plan. It's a well-coached defense. They get after the quarterback a bit, though. And they can fluster Anthony Richardson in the passing game. I think they'll have a good game plan to slow down Richardson on the ground. They don't really have a running back threat. They don't have Jonathan Taylor out there. I don't think they'll gain a whole lot on the ground with their running backs, the Texans. I think the Texans are going to have a really good game plan for this, and they'll get after Richardson, like I said. It's just, will they score enough points? I think this is all defense, and the Colts defense will play fairly solid in this game as well. Maybe Dameon Pierce makes that extra run in this one. The difference in running backs could be the difference. So defense could set the offenses up for good field position as well. So that's kind of, otherwise I'd probably have it even lower, but because I really don't expect much at all from these offenses in this game. I think it's going to be a pure defensive game. 16-14 Texans is what I have in technically the upset. Niners-Rams. The Rams looked really good last week. Really good against the Seahawks. They just completely outplayed them. Impressive. Matthew Stafford, one of the best quarterbacks in week one. Very impressive across the board. Tough matchup. I'm not going to say week one was a fluke from the Rams. I'm going back down, downhill on them. Not saying that. But for this week, I'm going to say that because it's just a terrible matchup. The 49ers have an explosive offense. They could beat you with the run through the air. The Rams are thin on big-time playmakers on defense. The Niners will take advantage of that, whether it's on the ground, through the air. Defensively, the 49ers have arguably the best, definitely a top 3 defense, and that can cause some problems like they usually do for Matt Stafford and the Rams. So the matchup just completely sides with the 49ers, and they win big in this one. The Rams maybe can get back on track in future weeks here because I was impressed with them last week. I said it a million times. I just don't like the matchup for the Rams in this one. Next, we got Giants and Cardinals. I got the Giants by 10, so they're covering that 5.5. It is a little tricky because the Giants were just god-awful last week, and Daniel Jones was awful. The offensive line's awful. And the Cardinals, defense played really well coached by Jonathan Gannon. They make plays, and they can get after Daniel Jones, and they can make plays. So that would be the reason the Cardinals could win or keep it under the 5.5 of a point loss. But I like the Giants, and they bounced back. They played a really good Cowboys football team last week in the rain. Not making excuses at all, but it's just a different matchup playing against the Cardinals. And I really don't expect the Cardinals to get much offense going. This is kind of the maximum 13 because the Giants will blitz the shit out of Josh Dobbs, and they will be effective. They will make plays because of it. The Cardinals are going to have to rely on the run game, and maybe that could do it for them. Maybe that could do it, but I think the Giants do enough offensively and really win with that blitz and playmaking ability on defense. So 23-13, Giants bounce back. Next game, Jets and Cowboys. Yeah, probably a tough one to pick against the spread, too, because it's so big, 8.5. But you just think it's Zach Wilson versus the Cowboys after what the Cowboys did in week one. You got to go Cowboys winning huge. But the Jets defense, these are maybe two of the best defenses in football. Jets defense is legit. They can hold anybody. They can limit anybody to very low points. So there's a scenario where, the Jets score 10. I'm pretty confident with the Jets around that range because I'm actually saying the Cowboys are the best defense in football right now. The Jets are right there. The Niners are right there. The Browns are right there. But this Cowboys defense will get after this bad offensive line, get after a bad quarterback in Zach Wilson, and get their hands on the ball and set their offense up for pretty good field position. That's just what's going to happen for the most part there. So the offense shouldn't have to do too much. I don't think it will do a whole lot, but I just don't think the Jets offense can do enough. I love their defense. I just don't think they can do enough against this Cowboys team. So 20-10. It's just a shame. It's devastating that Aaron Rodgers is done in that fashion as well. But I have the Cowboys, and 8.5 is a pretty big spread, but I have them just covering. They really should. But again, just because the two defenses being so good could take everything else away and could just make it like a 13-10 or a 17-10, whatever type game here. So it is a little bit of a tricky one, but the Cowboys at home should take care of business on that one. Commanders, Broncos, an extremely tough one to pick straight up. And against the spread, I feel, being 3.5, being over 3, I feel, a little more comfortable with the Commanders there because they could win the game. I don't think either of these teams are that good, to be honest. The Broncos only scored 16 against the Raiders defense and lost that game at home. The Commanders were maybe fortunate to pull off the win against the Cardinals. They were very, very sloppy, but maybe the sloppiness is just a week 1 thing for them. Not maybe they're good to go now, so that could be the case. I thought about the Commanders in this game because I like both defense, but I like the Commanders defense. Maybe they take the ball away from Russ. I think the Commanders offense is a little more explosive too, so you could say that one explosive play and them playing like stout lockdown defense could win them the game. But I think the Broncos' home field advantage at Mile High kind of takes over a little bit in this one. I think Javonte Williams makes that extra play on the ground. In the Commanders being so sloppy on offense, the Broncos got to get their hands on the ball. I think they create that one extra turnover perhaps. But the Commanders do have a collection of weapons, specifically at the receiver position, and maybe that could be enough. But if this was in Washington, it'd be flipped here. I'd be going with the Commanders. I think being so close, and I can argue both sides, that the home team just gets the advantage for me. But I do think Javonte Williams makes the extra play, and I think that defense makes that extra play as well. The Commanders' defense probably better, like more of a shutdown, like lockdown defense, but I think the Broncos could be that playmaking defense in this game. 3.5 seems like a little bit, though. It seems like a bit because and it's low, but because the Commanders could realistically win that game. Again, we'll recap my against the spread picks at the end here. But Dolphins, Patriots. Dolphins are only favored by 2.5, so Vegas knows something. They think they know something here. Sunday night in New England. But I'm gonna go with the Dolphins by 7, covering that because matchup. I mean, the Dolphins looked so damn good on offense last week in week 1. Does that mean they'll be the same this week? No. But I'm pretty confident with them being explosive because that's what they are. They had over 500 yards last week. And specifically, what they dominated was man coverage. The Chargers were in man coverage 80% of the time, so the Dolphins just feast off that. The Patriots are a man coverage team. Maybe they switched it up a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's their identity. That's what Bill Belichick's defense always is. They're a man coverage defense, so the Dolphins will find success. I'm not saying they'll have as much success as last week, and they could, but they will have success, through the air. But Belichick could have a good game plan, up there. And the Dolphins did struggle on defense last week. The Patriots had showed some promise. Mac Jones showed some promise just in general under Bill O'Brien against the Eagles. Even though they lost, it was kind of impressive down the stretch. And the Dolphins, again, struggled on defense last week, mainly on the ground. But so the Patriots could get more points than this. I just don't think the Patriots have the explosiveness that the Chargers have. They don't have Justin Herbert. They don't have Keenan Allen. They don't have Mike Williams. They don't have Austin Eckler. So that's kind of the difference, in my opinion. So better team, Dolphins. I think the Patriots are an underrated team, pretty good team. Better team, Dolphins. All the matchup reasons side towards the Dolphins. So I have them winning by 7 in this game. I almost think it could be more, too. So 2.5, it's low, but maybe they just take, because Tua is great, and he was probably the best quarterback, best player in football last week, but he does have some turnover potential. Maybe that's the difference in this game. Maybe that's what Vegas is thinking with that line. 2 Monday night games. The first one, the Saints. I'm going to go with them by 6, 23-17. It is in Carolina on Monday night, so that maybe could side towards the Panthers. But, but I just like the matchup for the Saints. I just like it for them. Bryce Young can continue to struggle a little bit. And he can play all right at the same time. The offensive line is going to be a little inconsistent. The Panthers just don't have that star playmaker on offense to kind of take over a game. The Saints also have a very, very good secondary. They will make plays. They will lock down receivers. And the best receiver they're going with is probably Adam Thielen. That's declining a little bit. So that secondary is going to make plays. They're going to be locked down. They're going to make plays. So they don't have too much of a threat here. So that's pretty big. In the Panthers, is there a part of their offense that's going to take over and be a matchup problem and just going to be a reason they score enough points? I just don't know if I see that. And the Saints offensively, I think they'll do enough through the air. Derek Carr, Olave, and company. Also, J.C. Horn being out is huge against his dad's old team. Just thought of that. Not that really means anything. He's out of the game. But I think they'll do enough through the air. And the secondary will do enough. So pass offense, pass defense there. So Saints matchup definitely favors them for every reason I explained there. Could Brian Burns get after Derek Carr? Sure, I almost expect it. And could that be a game changer, though? It's a possibility. At home in Carolina, maybe. But I'm going to go 23-17 Saints. And the last one in that game, I have the upset here. I picked the Browns to beat the Bengals last week. That happened. This week I'm picking against them. But Steelers got to go out there and execute, though. That's kind of a big thing there, obviously, because they were one of the worst teams in week 1. They did play the Niners, but they're playing a very good Browns team. People are sleeping on the Browns. They're good. I think the Browns are better than the Steelers. But this is Monday night in Pittsburgh. Steelers have a 20-win streak at home on Monday Night Football. Does that mean they're going to win? No, but it's something, and they seem to have success at home against the Browns in general as well. It's going to be a big-time defensive game in this one. The Browns' defense could cause problems. There's a new look under Jim Schwartz. I love it. They could blitz. They can get pressure the old-fashioned way at Myles Garrett. Everybody, Dalvin Tomlinson was fantastic on the interior, stopping a run last week. They can win that way. They can win with Chubb on the ground. Watson was solid last week. He could be better through the air. It was raining in that game, but he could be better through the air. I think Mike Tomlin's going to have these guys ready on Monday Night Football and TJ Watt. DeJuan Jones is a great draft pick, but him filling in for Jack Conklin and happened to go against TJ Watt. I think DeJuan Jones is going to be a good player. I think it's going to end up being a fantastic clutch draft pick. I don't know about this game, though. TJ Watt, I think it's after him big time. And that could be the difference. I think Kenny Pickett, he's going to have to play a better game. Preseason, he was showing some really good touch passes where it didn't matter it was preseason. It didn't matter that there was what defense was out there. Like, he was so smart, so smooth, so accurate. I think we see a little bit of that maybe George Pickens in this game. Enough of it. Not a lot of scoring. But Deontay Johnson being out almost made me go Browns. But it's just a feeling here. I'm going to go Steelers in a defensive game. But if the Browns... I already like the Browns. I think the Browns are better than Steelers. But if they win this game, they're serious. They're dead serious. Steelers lose this game while they just teams that they've had won these games every time pretty much. Then there's a kind of a serious problem there after last week and losing this one. So to me, it's a absolute must win here in week 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go with it. It's tough, though, because Johnson out. Again, overall, I think the Browns are the better team. I've kind of been saying that. But just this game, we're going to go Steelers in this one. And then taking a look at my spread picks, kind of a recap. I got the Eagles -7. It is pretty big. That's what's a little scary this week. I did so well last week. This week is a little scary because there's so many big spreads that I'm taking. I'm taking the favorite. But the Eagles -7, the matchup sides with them, they should dominate the Vikings. I mean, if the reason they wouldn't is because the Vikings would have success through the air because how the secondary is for the Eagles, but their pass rush should do the trick. It should do the trick. So the Eagles -7, the Packers -1.5, which is one I'm staying away from because I'm picking the Packers to win, and I have them winning by 3, and I thought about 2. I was like, 2 or 3, that still covers, but the Falcons have almost like a 49% chance I want to put on it to win. So would you take them with the points? It's only 1.5, though. So I guess monitor that spread, see where that moves to, but it's one I wouldn't touch. The Bills -9.5. I think they really get going against that Raiders defense. So I like them winning by more than 9.5. It's a lot, though. Ravens +3.5. I have the Bengals winning, but 3.5 seems like a bit. Seahawks +6. I think the Seahawks have a shot to win. I picked the Lions to win. I think the Seahawks have a shot to win. It should stay under 6. Chargers -3 against the Titans. Bucks, it's a tricky one, too, because the Bears could win, and they're getting 2.5 points. The matchup just says Bucks by a lot more than 2.5, but are they good enough to win by a lot more than 2.5? That's kind of the question there, but that's probably one I wouldn't touch either. It's kind of in the same boat as the Packers one. Jags +3 I like because I think the Jags could win, and they're getting 3 points. The Texans +1, 50-50 on who wins, so it's basically a pick 'em there. If that spread goes up to like 2 or 3 in that range, I love the Texans, so it changes that much. And then the rest of the games, here. The 49ers -8, just a really good matchup for them. They should cover that. The Giants -5.5. Again, I think the blitz is going to make them win by a pretty good amount, much more than 5.5. Dallas -8.5. It's a lot, and how good the defense is on both sides, and not just the Cowboys. The Jets could keep that just really, really close, regardless of who's at quarterback for the Jets. But I think who's at quarterback for the Jets and who's at offensive line for the Jets, and then makes the Cowboys score more points, covering that spread. But it's a little tricky. Commanders could win the game, and they're getting 3.5, so I went with them. The Dolphins -2.5. They're away on prime time, but they should win by more than that. They definitely should. Saints away on prime time, but matchup says they should win by more than that. And the Steelers +2.5. The Browns are better, so it's a little tricky, but get 2.5 at home Monday Night Football, where the Steelers play their best football in a defensive game. Feels pretty good. It's a little tricky because it's under that 3. If it goes to 3, I love it that much more, so something to keep an eye on. But I picked the Steelers to win for a reason here, so that's not saying it's a guarantee or anything like that, but they're getting 2.5 points. So those are my against the spread picks. I've been doing this for a long, long time. This is probably one of the harder weeks I could remember. So I think because of the big spreads and you're just feeling better about because I'm usually going against the underdog if the spread is big, but I'm just feeling better about the favorites. So it's a little tricky, and there's a lot of 50-50 games and very low spreads too. So it's like the Packers one's kind of that big one. That's probably the toughest one to pick with the spread because I could see the Falcons winning, but it's only 1.5 there, so we'll see. You see above me, Twitter subscribers get some bonus content. Best bets video /locks is the video after this. We'll get to work on that. It did really well last week, so really excited about this week to kind of just learn more about these teams because week 1 doesn't tell us a whole lot. So just to learn a little bit more, we have you covered for everything NFL, not just here, but on our Twitter as well. So check that out. Links pinned in the comments for that, our social media, our sponsors, giveaway for GLD Shop, everything like that. So check it all out. Be much appreciated. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.